The film begins with Ryan waking up in his car after spending the night there. When he heads to his room, he finds Tree and Carter hooking up, and Carter promptly sends him away. Ryan then meets his friends, Samar and Dre, in the school's science lab where they've been working on a reactor experiment. They are close to a breakthrough when Dean Bronson intervenes and demands they shut down the project due to the repeated damage it causes to the school's power supply. Later, Ryan explores the darkened science lab and checks a closet, only to be startled by Samar sneaking up behind him. Suddenly, the babyface masked slaughterer emerges from the closet and attacks Ryan in the chest. Immediately after, Ryan wakes up to find himself at the start of the same day, realizing everything is repeating exactly as before. Ryan rushes to his room to interrupt Tree and Carter, telling them about the strange experience he just had. Tree quickly realizes that Ryan is now trapped in his own time loop and recaps the events of the first movie to help him understand the situation. She and Carter agree to assist Ryan in figuring out who's trying to take him out. They retrace Ryan's steps back to the science lab, but when they check the closet, it's empty. Ryan then shows Tree and Carter the reactor he and his friends have been working on, and Tree realizes it was Ryan who accidentally created the time loop that caused her to relive Monday the 18th over and over. Later, at a pep rally, a fire alarm goes off, and as the students evacuate, Ryan spots the babyface slayer staring directly at him. Panicked, he runs in the opposite direction, with the masked assailant chasing closely behind. Just as Babyface catches up to Ryan, Tree appears and knocks the perpetrator out with a baseball bat. They remove the mask and are shocked to discover the perpetrator is an alternate version of Ryan. This Ryan, from another timeline, reveals that he's trying to stop his counterpart from creating a catastrophic event with the reactor. Determined to fix the timelines, Ryan, from the current timeline, activates the reactor just as Dean Bronson arrives to shut everything down. The alternate Ryan attempts to destroy the reactor, but it triggers a massive blast, knocking everyone unconscious. Tree wakes up in Carter's room, alarmed to hear him repeat the same phrases he did every morning on her birthday. She soon realizes with dread that she's back in Monday the 18th, repeating the same day once again. Frustrated and angry, Tree storms across campus with Carter and Ryan, heading straight to the lab to figure out what's happening. Reuniting with Samar and Dre, they confirm the reactor works, but Tree demands they fix it immediately so she can return to her normal life. Tree heads to her room and confronts Lori, asking for the poison cupcake she once planned to use to take her out. However, Lori denies any such plans, signaling that, in this timeline, she has no intention of harming Tree. At the dining hall, Tree's horror deepens when she notices that, in this dimension, Carter is dating Danielle, who is uncharacteristically sweet and kind compared to the Danielle she knows. Later, Tree joins her dad, David, for a birthday lunch, and is stunned to discover her mother, Julie, is alive in this dimension. Overwhelmed with emotion, she tearfully embraces Julie, cherishing the moment she never thought possible. The three celebrate Tree and Julie's shared birthday, and Tree later finds herself scrolling through her phone, marveling at memories with her mom that didn't exist in her original timeline. As Tree begins considering staying in this new dimension, she spots a news report about John Toombs being taken to the hospital. Suspecting he's still a threat, she grabs a fire axe and rushes to confront him. As she enters Toombs' room, a police officer intervenes, forcing her to drop the axe and handcuffing her. While escorting her out, the officer is suddenly attacked by Babyface, who incapacitates him. Tree initially suspects Lori, only for Lori to appear behind her in the elevator and pull her to safety. Lori guides Tree through a construction site, but Babyface ambushes them, striking Lori in the chest and incapacitating her. Babyface then chases Tree up the stairs. She manages to trip him, sending him tumbling down, but he quickly recovers and follows her to the roof. There, Tree loses her balance and falls to her demise. Tree wakes up again on the same day, realizing she's still trapped in the alternate dimension. She teams up with Ryan, Samar, and Danielle at the lab to explain the situation, aiming to close both time loops. To restore the reactor, Tree needs to repeatedly pass away to gather and memorize the necessary information for the algorithm. This leads to a montage of self-inflicted demise, including electrocuting herself in a bathtub, drinking drain cleaner, diving into a wood chipper, skydiving in her underwear while flipping the bird and landing in front of Carter and Danielle, and jumping to her demise. However, each demise takes a toll on her physically and mentally. When she awakens again, the trauma overwhelms her and she collapses into Carter's arms. He rushes her to the hospital. At the hospital, Tree encounters Gregory, who doesn't recognize her in this timeline, as she's not his student. Tree realizes he's still involved with Lori. She urgently warns him to keep Lori away from Toombs, who's being escorted to surgery. Racing to intervene, Tree knocks the cup out of Gregory's hand to take his gun. Upon reaching the operating room, Tree finds Lori already unconscious. Toombs appears, but Tree shoots him twice. Before she can process what's happening, Babyface emerges and tries to wrestle the gun from her. Spotting a tank of flammable gas, Tree shoots it, sacrificing herself and taking Babyface with her. Tree wakes up once more and pleads with her friends to fix the loops quickly, unsure how much longer she can endure. As she leaves, Carter follows her. She confesses her dilemma. In the alternate timeline, she and Carter are a couple, making it difficult for her to choose between staying with him or being with her mother. Carter urges Tree to let go of the past, reminding her that she's living someone else's life and must move forward. Tree decides to meet her parents for lunch, but begins experiencing pain again. She asks them to leave campus, and as they drive, her mother, Julie, reminisces about celebrating their birthdays with a special treat. This triggers a realization for Tree. The memories her mother is recalling don't belong to her. Tree understands Carter's warning that she's living a life that isn't her own. The family stops at a motel to rest, and while David is in the bathroom, Tree has a heartfelt conversation with Julie. Tree asks what she would do if she had never met David. Julie admits she can't imagine life without him, and shares how Tree's birth changed her world. Their tender moment is cut short when Tree sees a news report revealing that Toombs has escaped and taken out Lori, a police officer, and Carter, who had gone to stop him. Horrified, Tree realizes she can't allow the loop to close, or their passing will become permanent. Desperate, Tree grabs the car keys and drives off. She frantically tries to contact Ryan, but he and his team are preparing to activate the reactor. In a last-ditch effort, Tree speeds toward an electrical plant and crashes into a power box, buying herself time. Just before the reactor is activated, Tree is revived. This time, she decides to return to her original timeline. However, complications arise when Dean Bronson and 2 security guards arrive a day early to confiscate the reactor. Needing a quick plan, Tree enlists Danielle to pose as a blind French exchange student to distract Bronson. While he's preoccupied, Tree and the team use his keys to access the office, retrieve the reactor, and bring it back to the lab. Before returning to her timeline, Tree seeks closure. She approaches Lori and sincerely encourages her to end her affair with Gregory, reassuring her it's not worth it. The conversation ends with a genuine hug. Next, Tree visits Danielle's room to express regret for misjudging her, only to be interrupted by a half-dressed guy emerging from Danielle's bathroom. It becomes hilariously clear to Tree that Danielle is selfish and insincere in every timeline. Tree finally has a birthday lunch with her parents, but asks David to give her a moment alone with Julie. It's an emotional farewell, as Tree takes this chance to have one last heartfelt moment with her mother, cherishing their time together. That night, determined to save Lori, Tree heads to the hospital armed with the cop's gun. She arrives just in time to stop Toombs from attacking, shooting him lifeless. Tree and Lori make their escape, but they are intercepted by Babyface. Tree pieces together that the slayer is Gregory, who is attempting to silence Lori to cover up their affair. Before they can flee, Gregory's wife, Stephanie, arrives, holding a gun. She intends to off Lori but instead hands the weapon to Gregory, demanding that he take Tree out. However, Gregory unexpectedly turns and shoots Stephanie instead. Tree bolts as Gregory chases her, and their confrontation leads to a room containing a high-powered magnet, which Gregory fails to notice. Spotting the opportunity, Tree grabs a screwdriver and holds it as Gregory aims his gun at her. With a calm demeanor, Tree tells him just how screwed he is. She flips the magnet on, causing the metallic objects on Gregory, including a metal chair, to pin him helplessly against the magnet. After Gregory is trapped by the magnet, Tree releases the screwdriver, which flies through his chest, taking him out. Carter arrives just in time, and together, they help Lori onto a stretcher. Tree takes a moment to apologize to Lori for the way things have turned out, and how she wishes circumstances could be different. Although Lori doesn't understand what Tree means, Tree's sincerity is clear. Meanwhile, Brian, Sammer, and Dree manage to get the reactor running again, but Bronson and the guards are still trying to shut them down. Sammer and Dree hold them off as best they can, giving the reactor time to reach full power. Tree turns to Carter again, reminding him that they are together in another timeline. They share a kiss just as the reactor reaches its critical moment, mere seconds before Bronson can pull the plug. Suddenly, everyone wakes up in the room right before the first blast. Tree looks over at Carter, asking about Danielle. Carter responds with confusion. Tree laughs, overjoyed to be back home, and gleefully pounces on him. In the post-credit scene, we see the group of friends cleaning the garden and debating about the second dimension. All of a sudden, they are interrupted by 2 cars urgently arriving. An authoritative-looking bald man gets down and comes near them looking for Ryan. The poor terrified boy unwillingly acknowledges that he is Ryan. The man introduces himself as Dr. Isaac Parker. He looks at the group and tells them to come with him to answer a few questions. The group is escorted into a research facility where their invention is on display. Ryan feels proud. The man tells them that they need to study the thing to understand it, but they need a test subject. Carter questions if this would mean they would torment someone by putting them in an endless time loop. A look from the man makes him rephrase his sentence, saying unless they deserve it. Of course. This makes Tree look suddenly energetic. She eagerly responds to Isaac, saying that she has just the perfect test subject for that. The scene shifts and we see Danielle waking up, on her bed, with a loud scream. It becomes clear who her perfect test subject was.